So this is one of our inspiring journeys, and anybody who's been at an India Global Forum will know that we have these chats from time to time. Absolutely delighted to be on stage with you again, Vivek.
It is absolutely mine.
Really great to have you. Now, actor, philanthropist, social impact investor, but we're going to get to all that in a minute. But the last time I was with you on stage, we talked about the fact that you had just been in India's most binge-watched show, Inside Edge.
That is right.
And yet again, we're back here again, most binge-watched show in India, Dharavi Bank.
That's right, Dharavi Bank.
Now, the big question I have is, the last time I spoke, you had a mustache. There's been some manscaping since then. What's behind it?
Oh gosh. I think creative calls. The mustache came off pretty recently.
Okay.
And I had to have the mustache for creating this very strong, very desi, very Indian macho kind of character look. And then back to being the guy next door.
All right, excellent. Okay, so now you are no newbie to the power of streaming services.
That is right.
We've, I think, got one of your...
Yeah, I think Karan Bedi is in the audience, the CEO of MX Player.
All right, big wave. We've had COVID in between.
That's right.
What do you think has been the biggest change in the film industry in the last 5 years?
I think COVID has had a very interesting effect on viewing patterns. All the OTTs were going through the biggest boom that they've ever seen, especially in India. And India is this market for double-digit growth. And what was fascinating was OTTs were always trying to pitch and compete against theatrical releases. And as long as the theatrical release option was alive, the affordability of content to pitch more than what a theatrical would be able to deliver and get that on an exclusive OTT release was always more difficult. But when COVID happened and theaters shut down and then you had all kinds of rules which are not more than 50% occupancy, the numbers on theatrical drastically dropped. The security levels for being able to know for sure that whether you will be allowed to release or whether there will be a new wave and people will just stop theaters, government will stop theaters again. So people went to OTTs and they saw a flood of content at more reasonable pricing. And I think that exclusivity also changed patterns in viewing behavior. So people went to OTT a lot more because they were spending more time at home, work from home. We all know how that went.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan, were you?
Not really, no. I believe in that physical interaction and engagement. Yeah. But that led to extreme viewership, like Karan's platform, MX Player, ended up with shows that crossed 1 billion minutes in terms of eyeballs, in terms of viewing.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, it's extraordinary numbers. And that happened mainly because you had this whole, COVID, where people had the kind of time to be able to see more content.
Did it make a difference in how you made films as well?
Well, yes, I think you gear up to an OTT audience. You gear up to building characters that need to last 400 minutes rather than 120 to 150. You create different character arcs, and then you also think about writing a Bible for season 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
So you need to have an ability to create an arc not just for the beginning, middle, and end of a movie, which is finite, but you need to think of it from the beginning and what it would look like as an evolution over the next 3 years, what could be the potential content in the same space coming out, what could be the changes in the viewership patterns and what people want to see, because 3 years is a long time to sustain a show.
Interesting. All right, well, let's move along your own personal arc from actor to philanthropy, and then we'll move into the social impact investing. Sure. But why did you start your philanthropy journey? What was the impetus behind that?
I think I can remember it like yesterday. It was interesting because in India, cricket and cinema, it's almost like a deification, right? So you achieve instant superstardom, you achieve this mania, this craze, but the love and the hate, two sides of the same coin, are equally personal. So it's more like we love you or we hate you, The critics build you up, they tear you down. And when you're about 25 years old, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. The success, your first failure, your first success. You're the blue-eyed boy, and suddenly you're being criticized, or lobbies, different powers at play, egos to deal with beyond the creativity. So I went through my own journey pretty early in my career, and it was a difficult one. And I was moping about, why me? And my mom, who I look up to as a personal hero, kind of changed that for me. She said, when you had the success, when you were standing up there receiving all these accolades and awards, did you ask why me? And she said, what are you doing this evening? I said, nothing really. And she said, I want you to come somewhere with me. And she took me to Tata Memorial Hospital, the pediatric cancer wing. And that day I learned two things. The first thing that I learned was, I'm crying about a career issue. I'm upset about a personal problem. And then I see these 7, 8, 9-year-old kids. The hair's fallen out because of chemotherapy. They've got bloodshot red highs, dealing with leukemia. Their parents are there. Everyone's so worried and anxious. And they're dealing with it okay. They're fighting back. So I realized that my problems were nothing. But the second understanding was even more profound. I didn't have to do anything. I just walked into the room and these kids were smiling. I didn't have to carry toys or gifts or say something nice or do something nice. Just by being there, just walking in, their eyes lit up. They were smiling, from year to year. And I realized I can bring joy. I can leverage this celebrity to actually ease the pain and bring joy. And that started my journey into philanthropy. I started spending time. Then I wanted to go into fundraising. I went into a whole bunch of interesting journeys there. When the tsunami hit Edie, I had this natural impetus to be there within 48 hours of the impact. And the whole world was telling me, from government administrators to friends and fans and families, saying, what are you doing? There could be an epidemic. There could be, a crazy situation there. Where are you going to stay? How are you going to live? What are you going to do there? I didn't know, but I just knew I had to do something. And I landed up without a plan, ground zero, 48 hours later. I saw the devastation with my own eyes. And it was incredible because I was able to leverage that celebrity. And within maybe 2 days of being there, I had 200 plus youth volunteers who were fans who just landed up, pitched a tent on the beach next to mine, and said, we're here to help. And we galvanized that into a movement, and then it became Project Hope. And what started as a pure rescue operation and a relief operation went into actually rebuilding villages from scratch. I had people who were town planners, who were big consultants and architectural firms coming in from Bangalore and saying, service is absolutely free. We want to be a part of what you're doing. Wow. And it created a lateral project where there was no ownership, and yet everybody kind of owned it. There was no vertical thought process that I run this, I'm just enabling. And I realized that that has tremendous power because everybody was a stakeholder. Everybody pitched in. And before you know it, you had the first 3 smart villages in India rebuilt from scratch within 18 months of the tsunami. And we had managed to house more than 1,000 families and recreate jobs for the village economy. So I thought that was extremely powerful. And that's what kind of led me to, be more actively involved in philanthropy.
Interesting. And so you've moved not just from giving and enabling, but now to investing and starting some companies that have social impact. Tell me why you made that move as well.
I think there's a fatigue associated with giving. There's a fatigue definitely associating with asking. So I do fundraisers, I still do them every year.
Donors fatigue is a real thing.
It's a real thing. And after some time, people just don't want to take your call because they're like, he's going to ask me to give more money. And putting that out there all the time, and the need is so large, I thought there has to be a better way. There has to be a smarter way. There has to be a way to create something that is more sustainable in terms of giving and creating measurable impact. Also, you have accountability, but growth is very limited when you're doing something completely non-profit. Again, it's linked to how much you can raise, what is the raising capability, ethically, how much do you want to spend on that raising? Do you want to do it in a big 5-star hotel? Do you want to have Edie Lush, on the show, helping you auction something? So I realized that all of these things are hurdles in growth. And if you have a social impact for profit model, you can exponentially scale. So in the last 4.5 years, I've co-founded 4 companies that have all had social impact for profit as their identity. And we've scaled infinitely. I mean, we've had most of the companies growing between 20 to 30 times. So great for investors, great for impact funds, for legacy funds, people who want to carve out a piece of their portfolio. And some places we're returning more than they get from their conventional returns, and they feel good about it. And the amazing thing about technology today, Edie, is that this impact is actually measurable. There's data that you can present crisp and clear. And it's constantly evolving because you have AI and ML in the back end. So the data is evolving and the measurable impact gets deeper and deeper. You get more data analytics in terms of the actual cause and effect of something that you do. You start with something in mind as an objective, but you realize there's so many more things that are happening simultaneously that you didn't plan, but are serendipitous. And then that adds to deeper data and better understanding, saying that, oh, here's even more impact that you can create.
I love that idea of the data exhaust coming out from and actually having its own value and its own impact.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take a couple of these. Let's start with the education technology business that you've co-founded.
That's right.
Okay, so tell me why you chose education technology and what this one specifically does.
So I started with looking at the finance side. So I think the history to it is I had the opportunity of going with the Prime Minister to Hanover. And it just blew my mind at the Messe to see where technology is going and how the digital revolution is happening, how industrial revolution is happening. And I realized that on the ground, we're far behind as India. We have the brains, but we haven't applied them to what the future could be. So I wanted to bring that into context, and I set up a state-private university, the first of its kind, which was a startup and innovation university. So that was the beginning. I wanted to create a meeting place of educators and minds and create a blend between traditional education, because that's the pressure from the parents, and startups, which can run parallelly. So we were the first university to get a dual degree capability. But then from there, I realized that within education, there was a lot of problems with financing education. Unlike the West, education in India is not as expensive, even if you're looking at purchasing power parity, it's not as expensive. But what happens is, say I'm a security guard, and I want my child to go to an English medium school, which is only 40,000 rupees, but I make maybe 20,000 a month. And they want me to pay 20,000 up front for the first term. And it is that catch-22 where I'm trying to go out there and raise informal economies, I'm trying to raise money for that I identified as a serious problem. So we started with FinancePeer, and we started giving zero collateral loans. Then we went into zero interest loans, where we played factoring stories. And before we know it, in 4 years, we're partnered with 12,000 schools, colleges, and universities. We have 3 million students. We have a few investors in FinancePeer here. The company's grown exponentially, maybe 30 times in the last 4 years. So that led me to say, what else can I do in education? And that's when I co-founded iScholar.
Okay, and tell me about that.
Well, iScholar, Edie, was, the best way to describe it is, it's a phygital bridge, right? A physical meets digital, because I realized the focus was only on digital in India.
I love that the rest of the world calls it hybrid, but you've created your own.
I just love phygital.
Okay. Now, rather than fidgeting.
So phygital was, the idea was to create a phygital bridge between India and Bharat. I'm very conscious of rural India, and I realized that the growth of India's story is going to be fueled by the rural economy in Bharat. For the rural economy in Bharat, we have to empower kids there. So you have the best teaching quality in the urban centers, which I call India, and you have the most aspirational students in Bharat. So like the American dream, I think the Bharati dream is, Mera beta engineer banega, meri beti doctor banegi. They either want to be an engineer or a doctor or achieve a government service story. But the access to quality education in the towns of India is lower. Now what I realized is that there was 3 kinds of divide. The one was a geographical divide. Say I'm from the Northeast, I come down to Delhi, I come down to Kota, to the Kota factory to study. I deal with cultural issues, language issues, issues of food, simplest of things like that. And that leads kids to get into depression. They get into fatigue. They just want to quit and go home, even if they have the talent.
Yeah, mental health issues, loneliness, yep.
And the second thing that we realized as a problem was gender. So the patriarchal mindset in Bharat, very few parents or families, or even if the immediate parents are okay, the grandparents said, well, you can send the son, but the daughter has to be right here in our village, in our town, because otherwise who's going to marry her? We can't send her to the big city. What will they say about her character? So even though she had the ability, she was probably more capable, she was being left behind. She wasn't being able to access really good quality teaching. And the third thing that we realized was language. You could have somebody who's brilliant at mathematics but doesn't know a word of English. And when they go to the big cities, they're taught with 60, 80, 200 students in a classroom, and it's all in English. So where's the vernacular? And they get left behind, they get disappointed, and they drop out even after making it this far of cracking of these exams. You even have people who crack IIT and then drop out from there. So we wanted to address all these three. So what we did was studio style on a proprietary-based technology, created live two-way interactive classes with teachers in the cities and physical centers in Bharat, connected digitally, having kids attend in a two-way interactive session.
How many kids per?
A max of 30.
Max of 30.
Because our data told us that beyond 30, the actual doubt clearing, the actual being able to feel like a part of a classroom, connecting with a teacher was very difficult. And then we looped that up back with a fantastic tech backend that gave 24/7, doubt clearing mechanisms. Kids study in the middle of the night and they have a doubt, they want to refer back to it. So they get, taken back to the exact same video of the lecture in the repository, and sometimes specifically to the aspect in the video.
Okay.
And then we have a lot of measurable impact in terms of when a topic is taught. There's an objective question session, so you fill that up, and that questionnaire then gives immediate feedback to not only the students and parents, but also to the teachers. Out of 30 kids in a class, if 22 failed to grasp a concept, then there's something wrong with the way the teacher is teaching it.
Right.
And every teacher has to be multilingual. They have to be able to speak in English and Hindi, or English and Kannada. That ended up creating a fantastic net result for us.
And the lectures are in different languages as well. That must have been important.
Yes, the ability to be able to converse in a language that a student can grasp and understand the concepts is exceptionally important. English ends up alienating a lot of really bright minds.
So you mentioned that you can measure the impact. So what has the impact been?
It's been exceptional. We've had a much higher success rate than many of the larger organizations that we hear of as unicorns, etc. So the net impact has been exceptional in terms of number of students clearing NEET or IIT JEE, so much so that we were fortunate enough to close a partnership deal with MIT. And tasked with propagating the MIT course curriculum at a substantial discount for Indian students across our entire network. So I think they saw what we were doing, they saw that we were quality focused, and they chose us over many more, much more established companies, because they realized that we do it in a more focused way, and when you sit in a classroom, there's an automatic sense of focus to it. So the idea was to kind of really give the best platform to the students of Bharat and build that human capital out.
Interesting. Running out of time, I do want to get you to give me 40 seconds. If I'm an apple farmer now in India, I understand you have an agricultural technology platform that might be interesting to me too.
Yes, well, we co-founded a company called AgriBid, and everybody's been aware of what's happened with the farm protests in India and the issues with the middlemen. So this whole legacy of the British Raj, of license Raj, of cartelization in APMCs and farmer markets has really depleted farmer income instead of increasing it. Farmers have been exploited, both in terms of delayed payments Then in terms of no transparency in terms of what price their goods were actually sold. They just write it on a piece of paper and said, this is the price. Farmers end up paying 5 to 6% to the market itself, another 5-6% brokerage, another 5-6% in terms of cartage, logistics, and this is not counting the labor to harvest. So they're 20% down by the time they reach the market, and that's when they're exploited. So we built the first system of its kind to source from farms directly, consolidate the farmers into FPOs, and give them access to a global market across trading houses, multinationals, SMEs that use food as their raw material, food security programs internationally, within India, public distribution systems. So we built that bridge out with AI. It's been a huge success story because it's very simple. It's 3 clicks for a farmer to figure it out. The fact that we've achieved 4 million farmers on the platform and within the next 6 months are on track to achieve 10 million farmers on the platform is an endorsement in itself. And we've also managed to achieve in just a year and a half a partnership with the World Bank. And we've achieved, this is what we're exceptionally proud of, increasing farmer income net to the farmers at 28.5%. Because the intent was never to earn anything from the farmer. We charge them nothing for onboarding them. We charge them no transaction fees. And yet, we're a profitable agri-tech company.
Fantastic. All right, we've sadly run out of time. I've got to ask you 3 very quick questions.
All right.
Do you prefer playing the good guy or the bad guy?
Well, I'm told I'm the good bad guy.
I feel like that's right in the middle. Okay, do you prefer filming in Delhi or Dubai?
Ooh.
Remember the
That's
audience.
a tough one. I can't even say what time of the year, because they're pretty similar in terms of the climate at the same times of the year. Oh, thank you. I think Dubai is a lot easier in terms of filming. I remember filming in Delhi ED, and we were shooting next to the Qutub Minar, and we had these cops come up to us and said, they hit their big stick to the camera, and I was like, that's a $500,000 camera, dude. And they're like, you can't film here. So we have permission. No, you have permission to shoot the Qutub Minar from this angle, but you don't have permission from this angle. So you have to pay us extra for it. So yeah, unfortunately, that was Delhi.
All right, final question for you. Cricket World Cup or Football World Cup?
Oh, Cricket World Cup.
All right. That'll be good news to my, my co-host, Mark Barton. I think he's a cricket fan. So thank you so much, Vivek, for joining. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a huge round of applause.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.